This is the Louie Tee Network.
In the lab room.
The views and opinions shared on this program are that of Louie Tee and In the Lab Room alone and should be taken exactly as they are given. If you are soft, easily offended, or can't listen to the criticism of your team, this program is not intended for you. This is pure, unadulterated football talk for the hardcore fan. Viewer discretion is advised. Welcome, you are in the lab room. I'm your host, Lou. Thank you for joining me here on this program, 2014 Lab Reports. Today, we're talking about the team that held the number one selection in the 2014 NFL Draft, the Houston Texans. Ready or not, here we go. Lab Reports, Houston Texans. Strengths for the Houston Texans. My, have the mighty fallen. Remember when this team was one of the best in the league, boasted one of the best offenses and one of the best defenses, was one of those teams you thought could be on the cusp of doing something potentially great. And now they're one of the worst teams in the league. But one thing has remained: their defense. It doesn't matter how bad they play offensively or how they can't get it together with the quarterback situation or the lack of points being put up by their offense. Their defense is legit. Whether it's Wade Phillips or it's now Romeo Crennel, whomever is captaining that defense has them playing at an extremely high level. And so there is a foundation, a building block for this team to get better. And it all starts with this defense. That is definitely a strength. You look at J.J. Watt and all the guys that they have on their defense, when healthy, Brian Cushing and company, they can get it done on the defensive side of football. If they can stay healthy, the defense generally will keep them in football games and give them a chance to win. You look at another strength of this Houston Texans team. Look, when you're a 2-14 team, there's not a lot of strengths to be talked about or had. However, for a 2-14 team, this is an extremely talented team. And so another strength of this football team is elite level talent. You won't find another team in the league with more elite level talented players than the Texans. Especially when looking at their record, you're surprised because you could run off a list of names that rank up there with some of the best in the league in terms of elite level talent. When healthy, Brian Cushing is as good as it gets at the linebacker position. J.J. Watt might be the best defensive lineman in all of football. He's definitely the most dominant at this point. You look at Andre Johnson, the one and only DRE. If you want to talk about consistently good at the wide receiver position and a potential future Hall of Famer, you're talking about the one and only DRE, Andre Johnson. You look at Arian Foster, when healthy, one of the best multifaceted backs in the entire National Football League. Jonathan Joseph plays really good football at the cornerback position. You could go on and on with the amount of guys they have on this football team that are extremely talented. And so this is a talent-rich team with a lot of elite caliber football players. Yet, they're not a good team. However, it's not because of a lack of talent. That is for certain. And so, you go from those strengths to weaknesses. Anytime you're talking about a 2-win team from a season ago, you automatically have to start at the top. Why is this happening? And you need not look any further than the quarterback position for the Houston Texans. Look, bad football teams normally struggle at the quarterback position. And it's no different for the Houston Texans. Their quarterback situation might be the worst in all of the National Football League. And that's pretty hard to do. But because they didn't spend a first-round pick, nor a second-round pick, nor a third-round pick on a quarterback, their quarterback situation looks extremely bleak right now. And I think they might have spent the third-round pick, or it might have been a fourth-round pick. Either way, Tom Savage and hitching your wagon to Tom Savage in the future doesn't make me feel confident if I were a Houston Texans fan. And you coming out and boldly declaring that Ryan Fitzpatrick is my starting quarterback in July doesn't make me feel good about my team. So easily, the Texans quarterback situation was a mess last year and easily is a mess and could potentially be the worst in the league in 2014. That is a glaring weakness. You look at another weakness on this football team. And when talking about the Texans, last season, one of their Achilles heel was the fact that they could not generate turnovers. They weren't forcing turnovers. They were a non-opportunistic football team. And for as good as this defensive unit could be at times last season, they failed to turn teams over. They were dead last in the league in interceptions with only 7. Okay? Only 7 interceptions the entire season. There's 16 games. You had less than half of that total. 7. That is mind-boggling that you could only total 7. Some guys probably have that by themselves, and yet you generated that as an entire team. Now, it didn't stop there. They had trouble forcing fumbles and recovering them as well. They were a league worst in the recovery of fumble department as well. Only 4 of those. So as a team, only 11 turnovers generated. That is not going to win you many football games because, as we know, in this league, you got to win the turnover battle. You got to win the turnover battle. And if you're not generating them, that means you don't have any margin for error when talking about turning over the football. So you can see why this team only won 2 games a season ago. You got to force turnovers, and they did not do that. They have to be more opportunistic. And right now, they're a non-opportunistic football team. That is definitely a weakness that they have to clean up if they want to add more wins to their total. You look at another weakness, and this is the biggest one for me right now outside of the quarterback situation. And this is the simple fact that the window of opportunity has closed in Houston. Okay? You're no longer a competitive team looking to win a Super Bowl. You're in a rebuilding stage. And I know it's hard as a fan to admit that, but you're rebuilding. You can't seriously think that you're going to contend for a Super Bowl title this season, not with Ryan Fitzpatrick as your starting quarterback. You can't even look yourself in the mirror and tell yourself that you're going to make it to the postseason this year. You know, everybody around this time wants to say, hey, why not us? I'll tell you why not the Houston Texans, because Ryan Fitzpatrick is your starting quarterback. That's why. And guess who you got backing him up? Case Keenum. So that's why you can't make it to the postseason. That's why you're in a rebuilding phase. That's why Andre Johnson is holding out, aside from the fact that you jerked him on some bonus money that you should have just ponied up. Anyway, he knows this is a rebuilding phase, and he doesn't want to be a part of it. He does not want to spend the twilight years of his career in Houston for a 5-11, 6-10 football team, which is ultimately what you're probably going to be. And so you can see why he's doing what he's doing. I don't think it's a matter of him not wanting to play for the Texans. But hey, if you're going to jerk me, I could come up with reasons why I don't want to play for the Texans anymore. And the biggest one would be our window of opportunity has come and it's gone. Now we have to learn how to win with a brand new core and crop of players. And it's got to start all over. A brand new head coach. Things have changed. This isn't the same group. And you no longer are a team that will threaten to win anything in the AFC conference right now. And if I'm a free agent, unless you're throwing an inordinate amount of money at me, I don't want to come to Houston. Why would I want to come to Houston right now? And that's where this problem puts this Texans team in the position that it puts them in, is that your window of opportunity has closed, and now you've got a long journey back up the mountain in front of you. And that is definitely a weakness, because that's a mind state. Okay, that's a state of mind that you have to overcome as a football team when you know we're not a good football team. And you can tell yourself that. But again, you don't have a quarterback. You don't have a chance in this league, and you don't have a quarterback right now. So you go from weaknesses to camp battles. As you can see, I've got my big board behind me. Going to use his assistance the rest of the way when talking about these camp battles and, of course, the experiment. So looking at the camp battles for the Houston Texans, you would expect this side of the board to be basically full. But when looking at this board, there's a lot of blank space down here. And again, that speaks to some of the talent on this roster. There's a lot of talent on this roster. I talked about elite level talent. If Jadeveon Clowney proves to be what we think he can be, there's a lot of elite level talent on this football team. And so you look at these camp battles, and let's start at receiver. And it's a 6-for-5 situation. 6 players for 5 roster spots. I'm going to go ahead and assume that Andre Johnson is on this roster because I don't see the Texans trading him. I don't know if they could get the value that they're looking for from that situation. I don't know if they'll get what they're looking for in return. And I don't know if they're really willing to trade him. He's kind of a building block, and you don't want to end that relationship on a sour note because this guy is going into the Hall of Fame when it's all said and done. You don't want this thing to end ugly. So I think he's going to be back somehow, some way in Houston. Right now, it's up in the air, but I'm going to assume that he's back in Houston. So you look at this situation: Andre Johnson, DeAndre Hopkins, DeVere Posey, Mike Thomas, Alan Bonner, Keyshawn Martin, and I've got Travis Labhart, an undrafted rookie free agent out of Texas A&M, as a wild card at the bottom. Not really counting him in this group, but he's a guy to look out for, and I'll explain why here in a second. But let's just assume that these 3 over here, Dre, the one and only DRE, D-Hop, DeAndre Hopkins, and DeVere Posey are all locks on this roster. Pretty safe assumption to make. So you take them out of the equation, and now you're left with 3 guys for 2 roster spots. Mike Thomas, he's a guy that showed flashes of potential in Jacksonville, then has bounced around to Detroit and a couple of other spots. He is in the mix along with Alan Bonner and Keyshawn Martin, a guy that you had returning kicks out of Michigan State last season, and he can do some things at the receiver position. Really, what the Texans are looking to do is solidify the slot receiver, because with the one and only DRE on one side and D-Hop on the other, you've got height, you've got size, you've got legit number 1 candidates on both sides of the field. Now you're looking for that Z receiver, that slot guy, the little fidgety guy in the slot that can run, get in and out of breaks quicker than fast. And so you're looking for a Mike Thomas guy, and this is why Travis Labhart is someone that you don't want to sleep on, because he was that kind of receiver at Texas A&M, and he's a guy that could come in and run those routes and get in and out of breaks quickly, catch the football, snatch it out of the air, get up the field, make things happen after the catch. So he's a guy that you don't want to discount. But Alan Bonner, Mike Thomas, and Keyshawn Martin are going to vie for the last 2 roster spots at wide receiver. And if Keyshawn Martin, who really did not overwhelm me with his production on special teams, can find a way to have an impact on special teams as well as a receiver, he can find a way to stay on this roster. We'll see what happens at wide receiver. You move on to the next camp battle. It's at left guard, really the only starting position up for grabs on this offensive line. Ben Jones, the incumbent left guard, is a guy that was drafted as a center, plays the center and guard position, has versatility out of Georgia. They drafted Xavier Su'a-Filo at the top of the second round when they could have went quarterback. They went guard. This guy is a high-level prospect, one that I am very enamored with, feel like he has a world of talent, would be extremely surprised if he does not wrestle that position away from Ben Jones. We will see. Jones won't go down without a fight, but Xavier Su'a-Filo is the future at that left guard position. Wouldn't be surprised if he's your starter day number 1. You move on to free safety. I'm still a little sour, okay? I've still got a bitter taste in my mouth from the Texans allowing Glover Quinn to walk away in free agency a season ago. But look, that's done. It's gone. You can't bring that one back. So you have to move on. And you drafted DJ Swearinger in the second round last year. And he proved to be what we thought he was. An in-the-box safety. He's a thumper, a guy that you want sniffing around the line of scrimmage. Now you need someone to alleviate the pressure of dropping back in coverage and playing some single high safety, as well as playing cover 2 responsibilities and getting into their zones correctly. And so you went out in free agency and picked up a couple of guys to see if one of them can stick as your starting free safety. And Kendrick Lewis and Chris Clemens, those two are going to battle it out. Kendrick Lewis coming from Kansas City. He's a solid guy. Fell out of favor in Kansas City, but he can make plays on the football. He's a solid safety, a veteran, been in this league. He can get it done. Versus Chris Clemens, another veteran safety coming over from the Miami Dolphins. He's a little bit younger. I think has a little bit more upside. I think when it's all said and done, Kendrick Lewis right now has been running with the ones in the offseason mini camps. He'll get the first crack at being the starting free safety. If Chris Clemens can come off the pace and prove that he belongs starting in that secondary throughout camp and into the preseason, maybe he will get the nod. That's one to keep an eye on. And last but not least, kicker. You can never, ever discount the importance of the kicking game in the National Football League. You found that out the hard way when Randy Bullock was missing kicks left and right last season to begin the year. And he cleaned up his act down the stretch, knocking home 12 field goals in a row to finish up the season. However, when you struggle the way he did early on in the season, you have confidence and mental issues. You got to watch out for kickers like that. They can be scary. So you bring in Chris Boswell, undrafted rookie free agent out of Rice, to contend with Randy Bullock. If Bullock wants to keep his job, all he has to do is go out and perform consistently in camp. If he does, he'll be your kicker day 1 on this 53-man roster. So you move on from there to the experiment that I have easily, and this was an easy layup. This was so easy. Who didn't see this one coming? Houston, we have a problem. Yes, indeed. We do have a problem in Houston. And the biggest one of them all is that funky quarterback situation. Man, does it stink in Houston at the quarterback's position. And so we start with the research question in Houston. Will the talented Houston Texans D, now led by Romeo Crennel, and the Houston Texans elite level talent be enough to overcome one of the worst quarterback situations in all of the National Football League? And that's the big question. That's the one you got to ask yourself. Is this defense that can be elite at times? J.J. Watt had 20 and a half sacks 2 seasons ago. 2 seasons ago, he had 20 and a half sacks. If that's not elite, especially from the defensive tackle position, if that's not elite, then what is? We've seen Brian Cushing go off, have phenomenal seasons. He's been bitten by that injury bug. If he can just stay healthy, we know what that man is capable of. I talked about Jonathan Joseph. You just drafted Jadeveon Clowney. We don't know what he is, but he's got elite level talent. Arian Foster, one and only DRE. There is elite level talent here. So what's stopping you? What's holding you back? The quarterback. The quarterback. Last year was the quarterback. It was Matt Schaub throwing to the wrong color jersey. It was Case Keenum being wet behind the ears. And what's going to be your problem this year? The quarterback. That's what's going to keep you from being a team that can compete in this league. Your quarterback situation. If you can get that rectified, why can't you go out and win 10 games and make it into the postseason? So, you move on from the research question to the hypothesis. If the defense is dominant, which we want to assume, especially them already being good and Romeo Crennel coming in, one of the best defensive minds in all of football. If the defense is dominant and the elites remain elite, all the guys that I've been talking about, Watt and Cushing and Arian Foster and Andre Johnson, if they remain elite and the QB position is solid, I'm not asking you for you to be great. Hell, I don't even care if you're good. Just be solid, man. You know that term that everybody likes to run away from? Just be a damn game manager. Just be a damn game manager. All right? Then the Houston Texans can get back to relevancy in the AFC South. Look, this division is terrible. It's a terrible division. It was the worst in football last year. So you're telling me that if you can just get some quality quarterbacking with the talent that you have on this roster, why can't the Texans win 4 games in their division and possibly win 9 or 10 total and make the postseason? This division, the AFC South, has the Jacksonville Jaguars and the Tennessee Titans in it. You know, of course, the Colts are a good football team. So you got to contend with them. But why can't you beat Jacksonville twice? Not saying that you should, because I think Jacksonville's getting better. But why can't you beat them twice? Why can't you beat Tennessee twice? You used to do it. So why can't you? You know, why can't you try to split with Indy and get one from them? This division isn't the greatest in the world. There's definitely some room for you to go and make some things happen and get right back into this thing. But again, it all starts with that quarterback position. And that's what it all boils down to. So, you go from there to materials needed. And the first material needed is Texans Blue Bloods. Your elite players got to be elite. You don't have any room or margin for error. These guys can't be subpar. They can't even be good. They got to be great. Arian Foster has to come back from that injury-plagued season last year, and he's got to come back this year firing on all cylinders. He's got to be one of these guys that's catching it, that's running it, that's being all-world, because, again, your quarterback situation leaves a lot to be desired. And so your running backs have to pick up that slack. Your running game in general needs to be dominant because your quarterback situation is not. Okay? So you need him to be dominant. The one and only DRE. I expect Dre to be back. I do. And so the guy had over 1,400 yards receiving. I heard he lost a step. But damn, if that's what losing a step means, give me 2 lost steps. Give me 2 of those. Hand me 2 of those. So he's elite, and he'll remain elite until he can't play anymore. So that's another guy that you need to continue to have play at a high level. J.J. Watt, what more can I say, man? I'm going to just salute the young man because he's a beast. So I'm not even worried about him. I'm not even going to talk about him. What about Clowney? Can he come in? He's a blue blood. Can he come in and show why there was all the hoopla surrounding him and why he was the number 1 overall selection in the 2014 draft? We'll see. There's a lot of talent on this roster. Just need guys to play. Can Cushing stay healthy? He's elite, but he got to stay on the field. Can't be elite on the sidelines in a warm-up. So, again, a lot of elite talent. We need the Texans Blue Bloods to step up and be elite. Lead by example. Stay on the field, stay healthy, stay relevant, play at a high level. So, you move on from there. Good fits. The thing I love about Ryan Fitzpatrick is when he's in the game, something's going to happen. That's why he's the perfect backup. I got a buddy of mine that always says, the one quality I want in my backup quarterback is that when he comes in the game, something's going to happen. Whether it's good or bad, I know something is going to happen. And that's one thing that I always know about Ryan Fitzpatrick is that something is going to happen because Ryan Fitzpatrick has a gunslinger's mentality. He'll come in, sling it around. Hey, I might throw it to the other team a couple of times, might take a couple of risks, might run around, get my head knocked off, but I'm coming in, guns are blazing, and I'm going to let the chips fall where they may. Now, with that approach, you get good fits and you get bad fits. If you're the Texans, you want bad fits over there in the corner, out of sight, out of mind. You want good fits. Good fits is the guy that will scramble for 6 yards on 3rd and 5 and pick it up. Good fits is the guy that will go through his progressions, make smart reads, smart decisions with the football, drive it down the field, hit open receivers in stride, can put points up on the scoreboard. Bad fits is the guy that tries to fit balls into double coverage, that takes too long to process information, takes sacks, and will make some spotty and faulty decisions and turn the football over. That's bad fits. You're going to get both. You want more good fits than you do bad fits. Smooth criminals. Did you see what I just did there? Not criminals, criminals with an E. You get it? Forget it. Smooth criminals. Romeo Crennel is heading up this defense. This is a good defense. We know this to be a truth. Now you need to transfer that onto the field in the form of turnovers and sacks. Last year, the Texans were 29th in the league in sacks with 32. And J.J. Watt had a third of those with 10.5 by his goddamn self. So if you're the Texans, that's got to change. You got to get pressure on the quarterback. That's why you drafted Jadeveon Clowney. And you're hoping that other guys like Whitney Merciless will get involved and help that number elevate. And with Romeo Crennel calling the shots, I expect it to. So you need more sacks. That's number one. Number two, you need takeaways. And that's what I'm talking about being smooth criminals. Is you got to start taking the football away, man. You got to take it away. You got to go and take the football away. It's nice to get off the field on 3rd down and force a punt on 4th down. But guess what? Now your offense has to drive 87 yards. Now your offense has to drive 77 yards. It's hard to do that in this league consistently. How about taking the football away and giving your offense a short field? That works. It does. It really does. Try it sometime. Because last year you didn't try it at all. So if you can start generating pressure on the quarterback, which will lead to errant throws and strip sacks with fumbles and recoveries, you can start to give your offense a chance to put up some cheap points. And there's nothing better than a deal. I love cheap stuff. Who doesn't? And I'll take a cheap touchdown any way I can get it. And if you can start a drive at your opposing team's 12-yard line, you're already in the red zone because of a J.J. Watt strip sack fumble and recovery, you'll take it. If you can get Jadeveon Clowney to get some pressure, errant throw, ball tipped into the air, picked off by Kendrick Lewis, returned to the 27-yard line, you'll take it. So you got to start being smooth criminals. Forget it. Bill of Rights. Bill O'Brien needs to prove that he is the right man for this job. And I feel bad for Bill because he stepped into a situation and he knew what he was getting himself into. I don't want to overstate this, but did he sign up for Andre Johnson holding out? No, probably not. But it is what it is. You got a situation where your quarterback situation is all funky. Now, look, you helped make it that way because you could have selected a quarterback sooner, but you didn't. So, and you made it very clear and apparent that none of the quarterbacks wowed you at the top of the draft. They all were lumped together and you didn't see separation, so you did what you did. But you're a quarterback guru. You're supposed to be, so you're supposed to be able to take all of this average stuff and make it above average. So we'll see what you do there. But you have to prove that you're the right man for the job. Bill of Rights. Is Bill O'Brien the right man? Can he get this group of 53 guys to follow his lead? It's one thing to be an offensive coordinator. It's one thing to go to Penn State and turn that program around. This isn't college. This isn't young men looking for a father figure. These are grown men that you have to lead in the right direction. Is Bill O'Brien the right man for the job? We will find out. Bill of Rights. So you move on from materials needed to independent variable. And this one is pretty simple. Ryan Fitzpatrick on the offensive side and pressure on the defensive side. Look, Ryan Fitzpatrick, I've already talked about him. You get good fits, you get bad fits. You need him to just play solid football. Get rid of the boneheaded decisions. Stop taking meaningless sacks. Need him to play within the framework of the offense and not try to play hero ball and force it into double coverage and get picked off. If Ryan Fitzpatrick can just play okay football with the talent on this roster, with the running game probably the way that it's going to be, because the Texans are good at running the football every year. Doesn't matter who's in there. And Foster is going to be back. They can just get solid play out of Ryan Fitzpatrick. This team can compete. And that's all you're looking for, man. At this point, you just want to have a season where you're involved in something meaningful in November, in December. You want to play meaningful football. You don't want to be 2-8 come November. It's over. So if Ryan Fitzpatrick can just give you hope, that's all you can ask for. And on the defensive side, pressure. I talked about you being 29th in the league last year. Pressures and turnovers, they go hand in hand. You don't get to the quarterback, you're not going to generate a lot of turnovers unless you're playing against bad quarterbacks. And in this league, you give quarterbacks time. I don't care who it is. They're going to carve you up. So pressure is paramount if you are the Houston Texans. And you got to get more pressure. 32 sacks last year. Not going to cut it. And J.J. Watt, like I said, had 10 and a half of those by himself. Need help. Jadeveon Clowney, Whitney Merciless. Guys got to step up and get pressure on the quarterback. And because of those independent variables, you end up with these dependent variables. The running game. Ryan Fitzpatrick has to play solid football, because if he doesn't, what's going to stop me from putting 9 in the box to load up and stop Arian Foster in this rushing attack? If Ryan Fitzpatrick doesn't threaten me down the field, if he's throwing the ball all over the place, and I realize that they are struggling on the Texans in the passing game, why am I not just going to load up the box with 9 players, much like teams used to do against the Vikings 2 years ago when Adrian Peterson was on his quest for 2,000 yards and the all-time rushing season record? They loaded up the box. Now, they still were able to pop teams, but you don't want to put yourself in that precarious situation. Keep a clean box by keeping defenses honest. If Ryan Fitzpatrick can do that in the independent variable, then the running game will explode, and that will give you, and they go hand in hand. They feed each other. If the running game's working, that's going to give Ryan Fitzpatrick opportunities to run play action fake and drive the football down the field. And if the passing game is working, now you can't cheat. You got to keep that safety back because of the one and only DRE and DeAndre Hopkins and company. So now you got to play honest. Now Arian Foster has room to roam. So again, they go hand in hand. One washes the other. Got to have it. And turnovers. I talked about pressure in the independent variable. Well, what comes of pressure? Turnovers. You didn't have a lot of them last year because you didn't generate a lot of pressure on the quarterback. They go hand in hand. Again, much like Ryan Fitzpatrick in the running game, these two wash each other's hands. If you don't get pressure, you don't get turnovers, and you get turnovers because you get pressure. So they go hand in hand. Look, if you are the Texans, you just got to get pressure on the quarterback. Start by stopping the run. Force teams to pass, pin your ears back, get after the quarterback, and guys in the secondary and the linebackers need to do their job and get their hands on the football. So you go from there to the constant. You start with defense. This defense is good every year. Just about every year it just seems like this defense is good. So whether, like I said earlier, it's Wade Phillips or it's Romeo Crennel, the defense remains the same. They remain a constant. They're a good defensive unit that's not going to give up a lot, that's going to be in football games. If this offense wasn't putrid last year, they win a lot more games. They win way more than 2 games because the defense keeps them in ball games. But when your offense is steadily turning it over, steadily going 3 and out and not giving you an opportunity, you lose football games. So we'll see if this defense can get back to being dominant, because they weren't dominant last year. They just were good. They have a chance to be dominant this year. We'll see what they do. And of course, the one and only DRE. What can I say that hasn't already been said about my man, affectionately known as Dre? Andre Johnson has been the consummate professional in Houston. He is the face of that franchise. You think of the Texans, you think immediately of Andre Johnson, and he quietly goes about his business. But if you look at his numbers, You'd be hard-pressed to find another receiver putting up the kind of numbers that he's been putting up for the amount of years he's been putting them up. I'd put his numbers against anybody's. DRE is the man, and he has been a constant, great football player for the Houston Texans, and I expect him to play for the Texans in 2014. So now we find ourselves at the conclusion. What does this all mean for the Houston Texans? Simply put, I talked this entire time about the quarterback position. And Arian Foster could run for 2,000 yards. This defense could be lights out. And if your quarterback situation is what I think it's going to be, you'll still only win 7 games, max. And that's best case scenario with Foster going off and the defense being elite. And I just can't see teams respecting the pass enough to not load up to stop Arian Foster. I don't see Ryan Fitzpatrick doing something that he hasn't been able to do his entire career, which is stay out of trouble. He's going to turn the football over. He's going to take risks and chances. He's going to make mistakes. He's also going to make some really good plays, but you take the good with the bad, there's going to be more bad than there is good. And because of that quarterback, and it's a shame because, again, I talked about the amount of talent on this team. And just remember, just 2 years ago, this is a 13-win team, 12-win team. They won the division. They were one of the best teams in the league just 2 years ago. We're 2 years removed from that. This team isn't that different from then. The only difference is the quarterback situation is light years different. Totally different situation. And so the Texans have a last place schedule. There are winnable games on this schedule. You got the Raiders. You got the Browns. You play Jacksonville twice. You play Tennessee twice. There are winnable games on this schedule. And still, I don't think you're anything more than a 6-10 football team. You're a 6-10 football team. And it's a shame because, again, if you had a quarterback, I think you could easily win 10 games. But you don't. You got Ryan Fitzpatrick and Case Keenum and Tom Savage. Have fun with that, okay? You sort that mess out. I can't deal with it. You're 6-10, end of discussion. And so that is the lab report of the Houston Texans. Remember, if it happens in the National Football League, whether big or small, we cover it all here in the lab room. I thank you for joining me. Come back sharp 7 o'clock tomorrow. We'll be breaking down the Oakland Raiders. See you then. Like the content? Want more? Sub up.